I have a policy of not punishing the punctual, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to keep things brief with the commissioner. I'll just share that I got to know the commissioner, and I had the good fortune of getting to know him through the search process. I was asked by Mayor Andre Dickens to serve on the search committee. So the commissioner and I got a chance to get to know one another, and I'll share with you that he's showed himself to be a very quick study of paying attention to what was going on here as a candidate, and then as he's been able to get, kind of coming on board. Our Green Space Advisory Council actually met with the mayor on day 2 with the commissioner, and he was there and present for that. Since that time, we saw him at the Green Space gathering that happened with the Tool Bank. And most recently, I was out there with him and Carrie Salvery and others with the Pops in the Park event that happened at Cook Park. So one thing you'll find about this commissioner is that he shows up, and we definitely appreciate that. I think he listens, but he also acts. I think the stuff that's happening with activation with the movie nights and the popsicles are just one example of ways that I feel like this commissioner's bringing some fresh thinking, some new ideas, and some energy to not just to react to what's happening, but to do some things to proactively shape what happens within the department and the relationships we have. So very excited to have our Parks Commissioner here with us here today. And I'd like to turn it over to him to say a few words and to engage with you with any questions you might have. Commissioner.
Great. Well, thank you, Michael, for that great introduction. Man, it's a hefty lift, right? But really appreciate you. And as Michael said, we got to know each other through the recruitment process. And I will say, Michael, it's been an honor and a privilege to learn from you and to hear your perspective and to really gain an understanding that really helped with the onboarding process. So thank you, Michael, for helping with that transition, and also to the many other members of the recruitment team, as well as the Parks and Rec team here in Atlanta, as well as many other community partners. So just thank you to everybody for the warm welcome. As Michael said, my name is Justin Cutler. I most recently worked for Seattle Parks and Recreation as the Director of Recreation Services. In Seattle, the Recreation Division's budget, including the division's budget, along with our partner organization, the Associated Recreation Council, the budget was over $50 million, which, if you know anything about DPR's budget, our budget is $44.6 million. And so when you think of scope and scale of responsibility and opportunity, I think there's a huge opportunity to build towards something as we move Atlanta forward here with the city of Atlanta. So I'm excited for that opportunity, but also just, I say that if nothing else, to show kind of the scope and scale that I've worked at and just have been involved in. I'm excited to be here in Atlanta. One of the things that really appealed to me about the city of Atlanta was the number of partners. And so, it's really exciting when you read the TPL report and the evaluation of the city of Atlanta, that over 1 in every $5 spent on Parks and Recreation services comes from the nonprofit and partner sector. And some might point to that and say, very critically, and say, man, we need to do better as a city. And I agree, we need to do better as a city in funding our Parks and Recreation services. But it also means that there's a lot of people that care about Parks and Recreation services in the city of Atlanta. And I think that's what makes Atlanta so different from other communities across the country, is that people care about Parks and Rec, and they're willing to put their dollar where their heart is. And so that was really inspiring to me. And that's one of the main reasons that my family and I chose to relocate to Atlanta, was to be a part of something bigger, to be a part of a community that wants to move Parks and Recreation services forward, to be a part of a community that has an organization like Park Pride and many other friends groups and conservancies that care deeply about their individual park, but also about their neighbor's park, and is willing to show up at different events and activities to support each other, and to come to meetings like this to support and show support for Parks and Recreation services more broadly across the city. So I just want to thank each one of you. You have inspired me coming to Atlanta and to be here with each of you. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of your neighbors and fellow Atlantans. Just thank you for your investment, not only in your neighborhood park, but in Parks and Recreation services across the city of Atlanta. So thank you. Also, some of the things that I've been doing since day one, I did start on August 1st, and unfortunately, it was a wild first week. We had a couple. We had a homicide at one park at Wilson Mills, and then we had a suicide at Central Park. And then we had a double homicide at Rosa Burney Park. And so my first week really was just working really closely with the police chief to build a response that that uplift community voice, uplift community need, and really would help really set us up for future success together, both police and APD working together. I'm sorry, DPR and APD working closely together, but also what are we doing to create a sense of safety and create a sense of community in our park spaces? That was really apparent that first week. And so the team we quickly worked together with the mayor's office and community partners, and we're able to pull together our activation series, which includes popsicles in the park, as well as our movies in the park event, meant to really bring community together and bring community into our sacred park spaces, and celebrate community and neighbors coming together to reclaim these park spaces and just provide additional support to community members through Parks and Recreation Services. So I'm really excited that the team was able to pull that off. And this is something that we've done traditionally in the past in the fall, once it gets darker, is to provide these movies in the park. So the team knew right away what we're capable of. And unfortunately, our first weekend, though, it rained. And, you know, they like to blame the guy from Seattle that it rains a lot here in Atlanta. But you know what? It rains more here in Atlanta than it rains in Seattle. We just get more gray days in Atlanta or in Seattle. So, you know, I think I've been blamed for a lot due to the weather, but it's not my fault. I have to say that. But you know, it's been fun to really jump right in. But unfortunately, that's meant that I haven't been able to spend as much time visiting sites and meeting partners due to the sense of urgency around park safety and just supporting parks. So I have been able to connect with many of our Green Advisory Council members on the mayor's cabinet. I've been out meeting with council members and attending community events and just getting to know people. Many of you who are on this call, I see Miss Salary who's here, and we met at Popsicles in the Park, and Rosa, I think we met at the Chastain Horse Park event. So and Catherine, we've already been on a call about Atlanta Memorial Park, and I know there's many others that I want to get together and get out and meet. And so I'm going to put my assistant's email address. She's probably going to hate me for this in the chat box after I'm done here. But we really, I want to come and visit your park, because I know each of you have a certain passion, a certain level of commitment because you're on this call today. And I want to respect that. And it's important for me, as Michael said, to show up, get to know you, get to know your park, and get to know your perspective on your park, which I think is really critical. So I'll be putting that in the chat after my moment here. But please reach out to Miss Gowans, be kind to her, know that she has a lot to schedule. It might take her longer and me longer to get to your park than you anticipate. Right now, we're actually looking at mid to late October, and possibly even the first part of November to make some of this happen, depending on how long you want to spend together at your park. But it's really important to me to be able to come to your park and meet with you and your team at your park. So I'll put that in the chat, and please reach out to Ms. Gowans and have patience. A couple other things, things that I've observed, when coming to Atlanta, is that our team's committed. Our team shows up. They showed up every day through the pandemic. They wanted to make sure that our neighbors and our friends had a safe place to be. Unfortunately, we're down 27% of our employee base in our park maintenance team. So I would ask that each of you tonight, after this call, reach out to a friend, a neighbor that you know, or a young person over the age of 18, and encourage them to apply for our Parks and Recreation positions. We have vacancies now. That is how you can help us make sure that your park is mowed, that the trash is picked up, and that we are able to meet our commitment to your park. So please, if you could help me recruit more people for our park maintenance team. Fortunately, I have prioritized this with our administrative staff as well. And tomorrow we're bringing on 13 new employees in our park maintenance group. So already we're making a dent in this really key outcome for us to improve park maintenance and bring on more people. And it's because of the hard work of the DPR staff members that have really made that happen, and our partnership with HR to get the word out. I personally have handed out 3 or 4 applications to people that I've met along my way. I've had people email me directly saying, hey, how do I get on? And I connect them immediately with our HR team. This is the most important thing that we can do as Parks and Recreation advocates, is make sure that people know that we have jobs, that they're available, and that we are hiring immediately. So please help me get the word out on that. Some other things, we have a great recreation team that's delivering with late night basketball, midnight basketball. And that's something that I think is really special here. Hi, Frederick. in Atlanta, one of the things, we have late night basketball programs across the country in Parks and Recreation. In Seattle, we had one that was going on for 35 years. But the thing that makes Atlanta special is that the community comes out. And if you're at the championship game and you saw the friends, the neighbors, the parents, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles that were present at that game supporting our young men playing basketball, that says a lot about a community, that we're behind each other. And it was so exciting to be at the champion and just to see the energy, not just at the championship game, but at the other games that I attended. And we know for a fact, it was reported in one of the local newspapers or news outlets, that crime went down when we had midnight basketball. Because we know that when young people are with us, we know that they're safe. We know that they're making good choices. We know that they have a healthy meal. We know that they have a healthy place to be. So the more young people we can have in our community centers and in our parks and in our safe spaces, that's going to make a difference for our community. And so I know our recreation team is committed to making a greater impact. And we're already ramping up services for older adults as well as for young people. Our numbers for our after school program are already at or close to levels pre-pandemic. So I'm just really proud of both the parks and the recreation team for the efforts they've put in to get us back to pre-pandemic levels, and then to continue to excel in delivering really critical services. Also, throughout my council member conversations, one of the biggest things I've heard from council members is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. And as I shared earlier, we haven't been able to meet expectations every single week, but we know that we are working hard to achieve that. But maintenance is really on the top of everybody's mind, as well as places for youth at promise, making sure that young people have a safe place to go. In addition to that, meeting with the Green Space Advisory Councils, again, how can we work together to continue to quantify the maintenance backlog and to move forward together so that we have adequate funding in order to achieve these results. But it's also important to remember that we do this within the context of equity and making sure that we're using data in order to identify where are areas of greatest need. And so the city of Atlanta will be launching our equity data tool at the end of September. And we have initial kickoff meeting with our Green Advisory Council members. And then we'll be hosting 3 community conversations over the month of October, so that we can meet with this group here or other groups that want to come. These are community conversations. We'll have 3 separate meetings to go over the equity data tool and to help walk through the tool, how it works, how it could be used within your different park group or different recreation group to identify needs, also to look at census tract data, health impact data, socioeconomic status, to really help use data to make better decisions. And when we're in meetings as a leadership team, we're always asking the question, what does the data say to inform our decision-making process? How are we using the equity data tool to allocate resources to parks? How are we using it to prioritize park investments? And one of the first things that we're doing is being able to provide council members in each of their districts the top 3 parks that need assistance, because equity impacts all parts of Atlanta. There's parks and there are opportunities to grow access to parks in all parts, and it's important that we focus on those that are farthest from recreation and park justice first, and then work backwards to those that are closest to the mark. But we need to use the data. We need to look at that, and we need to have transparency into the data as a community, so that we all know the sheet music that we're all talking from. So that will be something that's coming out in the next month that we're really excited about. But beyond that, I just want to close by saying I'm really excited to be here. It's great to be able to meet many of you on this call. I wanted to leave some time for questions that may be on your mind for me or the position historically or DPR generally. I also have some updates that I'd be happy to share if you have specific questions about your specific project. I don't know how much time we have, Ellen. I forgot to look at the clock when I started, but
you're fine. I'm watching for you.
Okay.
You have at least another 5 or more minutes if you want to go into those updates now, or we can wait until after Q&A. It's up to you, but we're doing well.
I also don't want to steal Andrew's thunder, because Andrew may be walking through. Andrew, do you intend to walk through all the different updates related to park improvement projects later? No? Okay.
No, just I'm just planning to announce the next round of visionings today.
Okay, well, maybe I'll do that then real quick, because there may be some people on this call that are wondering what's going on with my park, right? When is my park what is the status of my park? So if you don't mind, I might take a little bit longer, but I want to just make sure everybody has an update. Is that okay, Ellen?
Of course, go ahead. I'm watching the time, but
Okay, great.
yep.
So one of the most exciting things that we have going on is we're about to finish Mattie Freeland Park. Construction's at 90%. We're just working through the punch items and are being addressed. And we hope to have to complete the acquisition by the 23rd of September. This is a new complete park construction, which consists of a new pavilion, large custom grilling area, playground, seating, lighting, drinking fountain may be delayed due to some supply chain issues. We'll have a rain garden, an open field, small plaza. And this project was completed through the Conservation Fund Parks with Purpose initiative. And they hired Park Pride to develop the park and provided the park turnkey to the city. So we're really excited about that one. We'll hope to have a ribbon cutting soon. Center Hill Park is in the permitting process. This includes a new bridge to provide a connection over Proctor Creek and unite the entire park. So that'll be a great project. Lennox Wildwood is in permitting, includes a new bridge to connect the existing trail. Lindsay Street Park is in permitting, and this includes a new bridge and access for Lindsay Street, along with Minor Creek rehabilitation. A lot of bridges. Lang Carson, permit received and completed pre-construction conference, and that construction begins 9/19. So hopefully on Monday. This consists of stormwater and access improvements to improve path connections to Wiley Street and Weatherby Street, and expanding the playground area in preparation for new equipment at a later date. Herbert Taylor, we received the permit and construction starts tomorrow. Consists of trail and embankment stabilization using boulder steps and wooden staircase. The Cascade Springs ADA path and plaza, the new ADA path from Cascade Boulevard to the new Trailhead Plaza. We got $300,000 from Councilmember Overstreet and $100,000 from Park Pride. So thank you to Park Pride and Councilmember Overstreet for your support. Cascade Springs is such a gem, and I encourage anybody that hasn't been to Cascade Springs to get out there. Dean Rusk completed the installation of a new pavilion and boulder embankment stairway. Fitness path and plaza is still waiting on, and we're still waiting on handrails delayed due to supply chain issues. And then Choosewood Park recently completed the installation of stormwater improvements and step stoning pathway to tennis courts. I see the friends of Choosewood on the call here. And Atlanta Memorial Trail improvements to begin on the 19th on Monday. And then Liliana Cooper Shepherd is in permitting and consists of a large pavilion and improved access as well. So I just want to thank Aaron Weiner, who does an amazing job on our team to keep all of these projects straight and just supports each one of these projects. So big props to Aaron and the work that he does and the whole parks planning and development team. We couldn't get it done without him, and we wouldn't be able to support all the great community projects you all have planned for the future as well without his support and the support of the team. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. So quick kind of intro on Winfrey, you're on top of it. What we're going to do is have everyone raise your hand if you have a question, and then I will call on you, or Commissioner, you're welcome, if you're watching, you're welcome to call on people as well, and then you'll unmute yourself. We're going to ask that before you ask your question, that you reintroduce yourself. So your name and your affiliation, whether that's a friends group or another organization. We also have the chat, and then as we move through the agenda later on, if something comes up, you have a question, please feel free to park it in the chat, and we might have time to revisit. If we don't, we're going to, we got this chat log, so we're going to follow up on those questions that don't get answered. If you need to find the raise your hand feature, it's under reaction. So at the bottom of your Zoom window, you should be able to find reactions, and then raise your hand is one of those. And then we'll be able to see on the participants list if you've got your hand raised. So Winfrey, you're the first hand I saw. I'm going to mute myself, and you got the floor.
All righty. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome, Commissioner. I'm Winfrey Young. I'm Chair of Friends of Pittman Park and Vice President of the Pittsburgh Neighborhood Association. And I wanted to ask a question when you were giving all of the updates on the different parks. Pittman Park received, from what we understand, $1 million grant to deal with the flooding and the erosion problems in the park. At the convention this year, I asked Aaron about it and was told that the paperwork had just been signed. That's been many months ago. I'm wondering what's the timeline on that? Because one of the problems that our friends group is having is that we've had a few years of wonderful grant making from Park Pride that has allowed us to really upgrade the park and bring in different amenities. So we have a lot of families now coming into the park, and we wanted to continue adding amenities to the park, but we can't do that because we don't know where the digging up is going to happen. Do you have any kind of timeline on that?
Yeah, Ms. Young, I do not have a timeline today. However, I will follow up with Aaron and get you that timeline when I return to the office in the morning. So,
Great.
and if there's specific questions about specific projects, I likely will not have an answer this evening. I'm not up to speed on all the projects. I do apologize for that. But I will work. I just took notes, Ms. Young, and I will get that to you hopefully by the end of this week.
Thanks, Commissioner. Ryan, go ahead with your question.
Hey, my name's Ryan Sage. I'm with the In-Town Atlanta Disc Golf Club. We oversee the course over there at Perkerson Park and helped put that in a couple years ago. Glad to have you on board, first of all. Welcome to Atlanta. Wanted to, we were talking with Commissioner Dargle. We reached out last month, or actually back in July, June area, and we were starting to get conversations going about disc golf in Atlanta and what we do there, and looking at other master plans and seeing where we might be able to expand and bring more community into these parks. I'd love to carry on that conversation with you and talk about that. Currently, we're about to open up a new park over at a new disc golf course over at DeKalb Memorial Park, which is not City of Atlanta Parks, but it's DeKalb County. So we'd also love to have you there when we do our ribbon cutting over there. So hopefully we can get the conversation started and keep growing disc golf here in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ryan. And I think there's two trends that we need to work together on with community to support, and one is disc golf, and the other is pickleball. You may have heard of pickleball. What's funny is it's the official state sport of Washington State now. But yeah, Ryan, I think Tara Berkner, our park planner, she reminded me when we started a conversation about pickleball that we also need to make sure that we're considering disc golf and how are we supporting access to disc golf and pickleball in our community. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
But I think
Amy?
Ryan too, sorry, real quick, Ryan too, if there's specific parks that you have a specific interest in, I think it's helpful to know like what is your vision or what is kind of your idea of the ideal, and provide that to us so that we can understand kind of what are you hoping to achieve. Because for us to go out and try and guess, I think is more difficult, right? So if you or your constituency have a certain idea of what you'd like to see or a plan in place that maybe you sent to Mr. Dargle previously, and feel free to email that to me because that's going to help seed the conversation. So.
Yeah, we did identify some parks, and obviously, we want to work with the local friends groups and make sure that they want it there as well. We average about 35 to 110 rounds a day at Perkerson, which is quite a bit, and you're starting to see the erosion there. So that was another effort we wanted to talk about, is getting ahead of that. So look forward to connecting. I guess I just email this. Okay,
Yep.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's in the chat now too. Yeah.
It is in the chat. Amy, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Amy Stout, and I'm on the board of the Candler Park Conservancy over here in NPU Inn on the east side, and we will be inviting you to come over. I'd like you to see, we had a stream restoration project about 15 years ago that's unique, and would like you to see it. And I appreciate you have a lot going on with crime and murder and just the basics and safety, but I'm hoping, are you that you can bring some new progressive measures into the Parks Department? Can you talk about changes you hope to make on instead of just putting out fires, for instance, training for staff to know about more than just mow and blow and weed whack?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you bring that up, Amy. The staff have actually been asking for that too. And I think that's the great thing about our team is they want to learn, they want to grow. pun intended on that one. They want to understand, horticulture and arboriculture so that they can be the best Parker worker possible. And so over the course of this next 6 months during what we call a downtime, when the grass isn't growing as quickly and we don't need to mow as frequently, we do intend to provide additional horticulture and arboriculture trainings for our staff. To get to your point, I was just meeting with the greenhouse team today, and they were sharing with me of kind of some of the concerns that they have. When they rebed some flowers, and then the grass clippings are blown into the flower bed. And so I think even there's some little things that we need to make sure are happening and that we're coordinating on. But then to get to the bigger things around training and development is really critical, not just for our park staff, but also recreation staff as well. But going beyond, like you said, the mow and blow. And by the way, I was able to get out. I've been to 3 of our 4 golf courses. I took up golf when I moved to Atlanta. I thought, I can't hike as much, like around Mount Rainier and stuff. So why not do golfing? There's a lot of golf courses here. So we hit around Candler Park, and I've been in that neighborhood a couple of times. So I look forward to meeting you out at your park, Amy.
Thank you. Yeah, and I hope that riparian corridor protection can be part of their training and education and your considerations.
Yeah, and also use of pesticides related to that corridor too, right? The last thing we need is chemical spills or overuse of pesticides and just the impact that has on water quality.
Yeah, we're the top of the watershed. I don't know if they told you, DeKalb Avenue's subcontinental divide, everything is downhill. We're the very top.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Carrie, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say hi to the commissioner and to thank him for allowing us Cook Park to be the first park to have the popsicles in the park. It was very fun. Everybody enjoyed it. And I'm hoping we can do some things like that again. I'm going to reserve all my questions and comments today because we do have a meeting scheduled sometime in early October. But I just wanted to say hi and thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see you at the park.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Frederick, go ahead. You're on mute.
There you go.
There
Hello,
you-
Commissioner. I wanted to first greet you and thank you for coming from beautiful Northwest to us hot Southeast. It's great to have some input from outside the area. And second, the previous commissioner accomplishment, in my view, was this big bond that he managed to pass at the end for the Green Infrastructure Program. And there was money in there for probably 50 parks. It was a very impressive list. I think there was $250 million for something and $440 million for something else between improvement of the sidewalks and then the parks themselves. As several participants have already said, it seems in general that the increased rain and stormwater management in Atlanta is a big problem because Atlanta does not have a stormwater management budget except, and this is a quote from letters from the Department of Watershed Management, to repair city infrastructure in immediate risk of failure. And unfortunately, parks typically are not city infrastructure in immediate risk of failure. Therefore, we have left to deal with it on our own. So this money that was raised or was allocated, I guess, from city budget by Commissioner Darrigal, where is it at? Is it going to be part of your agenda to push forward with the list of projects? Can you tell us a bit your position on it?
Yeah, no, thank you, Frederick. And this is another high priority in addition to maintenance and recreation services is completing the bond measure implementation. So, we know that last time that we passed a bond, we weren't able to get to all the projects. So I think it's really critical that we achieve what we intended to do. And so no soft costs are allowed in this bond measure. So we all go into physical infrastructure, which is really exciting. And so we do intend to implement that bond measure as quickly as possible. We have 3 batches that will most likely be rolling out in 18-month chunks. And we are prioritizing repairs and some capital replacement. There's some property acquisition money in there. There's playgrounds that need to be installed in parks that were promised playgrounds. There's playground repair and replacement projects. There's new community centers. There's another pool. So there's a large investment in both capital and recreation and in park services that will be coming over the next 5 to 6 years. And that is a very high priority. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great news.
Yeah,
Rosa,
and real quick, if you go to the bond measure website and you're curious what projects are occurring and where they're occurring, there's a great website, has a great spreadsheet that shows all of the different projects, how much was allocated to each project. Some are like neighborhood improvements, and those are meant to like do kind of deferred maintenance kind of activities. But there are specific projects called out, and that website, and maybe you've been to that website, has all the projects that will be invested in over the next 5 to 6 years.
If I may say one thing, I think it's very important for the Parks Department to partner with the Department of Watershed Management. And, Susan Rutherford and Todd Hill in particular are the groups in stormwater there that I think need to have direct input. I was surprised when I sent the news about the bond to Susan and she actually didn't know it had passed. It shows sort of the disconnect sometimes between the department. Stormwater are really the biggest threats, I think, to many of our parks. And you coming from Seattle, I think, can appreciate the challenge of water.
Well, yeah, and I think, I went to a conference in New Orleans, and after the Hurricane Katrina, they were looking at parks as green infrastructure, and that's how I've always looked at parks. But and even in Colorado, there was a development of a park in partnership with the Urban Drainage District. And so I think there's great opportunity, as you saw at Cook Park, to develop watershed infrastructure that protects the community and also provides an amazing amenity for our neighbors. So, I think when we look at green infrastructure, we're going to be building, detention ponds and these different types of green infrastructure developments. And why not put a park around or in that environment and just manage the water that will occur. There's many parks across the country now that are built with flooding as an intentional outcome. So they built it for flooding. They use certain materials so flooding can occur, and then they have a maintenance regime that comes in after that flooding in order to repair and update the park. But they build the park in a manner that allows it to flood on a regular basis. So that's something that I hope that we can achieve here in Atlanta.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Justin. I know you feel the love tonight, and I think I speak for everybody here. We all want to support you and have you have a great time here. So thank you for the opportunity. Actually, Frederick, you took some of what I was going to ask about the Department of Watershed Management. I'm really excited to hear about the bridges that have been approved. We have several issues about stormwater management at Chastain Park, and an interest that was included in the master plan for us to bring a bridge. And when I looked at it in the past, that communication between watershed management was really hard to incorporate into the project. So I guess I'm concurring with Frederick that we really need to make that important, how that communication goes. And if you have any feedback for us as to how those bridges were approved, so that we know lessons learned as we move forward with implementing that piece of our capital master plan, that would be great. So that was.
Yeah, I don't know how the specific bridges were implemented in the list that I rattled off earlier, but I can check in with Aaron and get back to you, Rosa.
Yeah, that would be great, because as we get started, I want to start from the best way. Thank you.
thank you, Rosa. Catherine, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. Justin, thank you so much for being on this call with all of us. We really appreciate you being so engaged. So thank you. I have two questions. One is, I think this is an issue that everyone probably on this call, if you oversee a park or care about your neighborhood park, are down trees or DDH trees in the park. There is a significant and severe backlog to the point where there are hazardous trees that are dead, that are hanging over picnic tables and benches and things like that. I understand, about staffing issues and just the backlog, but is there a way, and have you thought about, subcontracting out and so that you can catch up and kind of be there? And then second, is a question that I talked to you about just very briefly when I first met you, just about the tennis centers. Is there an update? Have you kind of gotten a little bit of an earful on that? We would, I think people who have the tennis centers in their parks would love to have a conversation with you, just to have give you feedback on what the experience is for everyone today compared to what it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no. So related to hazard trees, I'd first say, if you see a tree that's dead or dying or hazardous, please email us, call 311, report that tree immediately. Hazard trees will be taken care of as soon as possible. Typically, I think we have like a 15 to 30-day response, or depending on what the target is, it'll be even quicker. And yes, Catherine, as you said, we are contracting out hazard tree mitigation, or contracting out routine or other maintenance so that our team can then respond to hazard trees. But yes, please let us know. We can't get to every park and investigate every tree all the time. But if you can help us, let us know where these trees are, then we can act more quickly. And I don't know if these are trees that you've already reported. Maybe you have.
They are.
Okay, so if they are, and it hasn't been mitigated, please send me your initial email, and then your current email, so I can address the timing. Because without that information, it's difficult for me to have a real conversation. So please send that, and we can look at getting that tree mitigated. And that goes for anybody in any park. Please let us know. The last thing we need is a tree causing injury or harm, or worse yet, death, because it falls on somebody. So please let us know as soon as possible. Related to the other part of your question, related to the tennis centers, yes, this is something that is on our list. We are working through what possible solutions are at this point. I know that I believe we have a monthly or a quarterly tennis meeting in which we talk with the different kind of friends of tennis groups at each of the tennis centers, and I get input from that group. I've also read the USTA did some evaluations of our tennis programs historically and what worked well, and that was based on constituent as well as contractor and friends of group feedback. But I'd be happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk about tennis and get feedback. So yeah, if you want to have a conversation, Catherine, let's get together and talk about tennis. But at some point, we will be moving forward with a solution. And it may be a different solution for each center. It may be one solution for all centers, and we're still trying to figure out what the best solution would be.
Great, thank you so much. And involving the community, right? Hearing from them. I haven't played tennis in, I don't know, how old is my son? 22. So, it's really hearing from the community members, and that's where this is coming from. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So we're right on time. We're going to move into some program updates from Park Pride. I'm going to ask any team members who are giving updates just to briefly introduce themselves before you go into your remarks. And we're going to start with our park visioning program. Andrew, take it away.
Thank you. Do I have permission to share screen? Let me see. Yes, I do.
Ask and we'll grant it.
I got it. So I only have a few announcements to share tonight. I wanted to first call attention to an event that we have coming up. And if you were at last month's, or I don't know if it's last month or the month before, when we announced our park design workshop, this year we're going to be focusing on signage design. So this is something we've heard a lot of interest in from friends groups about how do I get a sign for my park that talks about the history of the area, or that discusses the ecology, animals, pollinators, rain gardens, creeks, whatever it is you want to discuss or let people who are visiting your park know about. So we decided to create a workshop all around that theme. and it's 2 weeks from tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. and it's virtual, so you don't have to go anywhere. Just plop yourself down in front of your computer and we'll take you on a journey of signage. And we've been working with a few different community groups on their specific signage projects. And so you'll be hearing not just from me, but from interested community members like yourself who have actually gone through at least part of the process towards getting some signage developed and approved for their parks. So very excited about that. We hope that you'll consider joining us if you want to learn more about that. Secondly, I wanted to let everybody know and use this opportunity to announce our next 2 park vision plans. Park visioning, for those who may not know, is a program of Park Pride whereby we work with a Friends of Park group for a period of about 6 to 8 months, doing a really deep dive into their park and a very comprehensive community engagement process, through which a long-term plan is developed for that park, outlining suggested capital improvements. We investigate the history, we come up with cost estimates for the proposed improvements. And each year we're able to do 2 of those, well, 4. So we do 2 in the city of Atlanta and 2 in DeKalb County. And we select these projects through applications. And this year we got 11 applications, which is more than we've ever gotten before. It was really hard to decide. All of the applications were really strong. And so it wasn't an easy decision to make. There wasn't a stinker in the bunch, I'll tell you. So the 2 that we ended up selecting out of those 11 are shown here on the screen, and they are Falling Water Park, which is actually a park in holding. It's been in the park's inventory for the city of Atlanta since 2004, but it has never been opened up to the public. So it's been sort of waiting for its moment. It is in an area, I mean, you can sort of see on this map that doesn't have any parks around this area. So it is in an area that it's in a compelling location, and a location that doesn't have parks, and that's getting a lot of new housing developed in and around there. The community is very excited. They're very eager to get started and begin to imagine what that space could look like. It's got a lake in it. It's mostly forested. It's really beautiful. So excited to get started there. And then the second park is in Peoplestown, Four Corners Park. Another example of, although it is in the inventory, it has some development on it. It has much of its footprint remains undeveloped. No dedicated funding in the park bond package that Frederick was talking about to help like a project get started there. So we were super impressed with the community. They really came out. They are very excited to get started on something new for their park and something nice for their community. So we are happy to help them with that. And we'll be starting there next year. So those are the 2 we picked. Thank you, everybody, if you applied and you're on this call. We really appreciate your interest in your application. And like I said, we will continue to support all of the groups who applied through all of our programs. And I wish we could do all of the projects with visioning, but yeah, feel good about these 2. And speaking of applications, I think there's probably mostly Atlanta crowd here tonight, but if you are joining us from DeKalb County, we anticipate releasing our applications for visioning there later this year. So keep your eyes out for that, and we'll be making announcements and doing outreach, more targeted outreach to DeKalb County groups soon. I think that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Andrew. Does
Yeah.
anyone have quick questions for Andrew before we move to our grant making program. Great. Well, if you have questions or you want to know more about our park visioning services, that is on our website. You can always also reach out to Andrew and his team. Andrew, I'm gonna put your email in the chat.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's on the website, so
Yeah, it's
find
published.
you anyway. Thanks again, and I'm going to invite Kayla to give an update on our grant making program.
Okay. As Ellen said, I am Kayla, and I am managing the grant making and the fiscal sponsorship programs at Park Pride. I don't have any exciting updates, announcements like Andrew had, but just wanted to let everyone know that we sort of have two grant buckets. We are sort of in the throes of the Park Pride grants, which is for projects that are 10,000 or more. And we're conducting site visits at this point, just looking at everyone on the call. Most of you are participants in our grant making program, whether having open grants or you're going through that process at this point. Just a reminder, the small change grants, if you do not have a grant or are not going through that process, the small change grants are open year-round applications on a rolling basis. And those are for awards up to 5,000 for matching grants, one-to-one. And just as a plug to Andrew's sign design workshop, we provide funding for signage, not general park signs or bull signs, but things like interpretive and educational signage, as well as wayfinding if you have a larger park. Just any other updates for grants, we will be completing our Park Pride grant application cycle, which is the annual cycle, in November, and making those announcements of awards in January. This past year was our largest award to date. That was almost 2.3 million, and that was with the support of our existing funders, the Robert W. Woodruff Foundation, the Home Depot Foundation, and with a new very important partnership with the City of Atlanta. And so we're hoping to increase that slate of projects and awards for this coming year. Winfrey, did you have a question?
Yes, for Kayla. We had an incident in the park. Someone brought an unleashed pit bull that bit a 2-year-old in the park, and they ran away from the park and left the dog. So we talked to Aaron about signage for the park, because of the new amenities, a lot of people are coming and walking dogs, and we don't have any of those stands with the doggy bags in them, and we don't have any extra signs that say keep your pets off the football field, because that seems to be where they want to go. So would we apply through your signage program for extra signs, or is that something Parks and Recreation?
I don't know if there's specific safety signage that Parks and Recreation has. I'd have to look more at the park design package, but I'd imagine that would be something, that is specific. We could potentially fund through a small change grant. Obviously, the dog way stations are also something. They're a small cost, but obviously not something. Not too much, but that can also be part of a small change grant package.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't see any other hands raised. Does anyone else have a question before I hop off? One last thing I wanted to note, if you know any young or emerging professionals, we are hiring a program associate for the grant making and fiscal sponsorship programs to work directly with me. And we are closing that position on September 20th, which is Tuesday. If people want more information, you can go to the careers page of our website, and Ellen can drop that link in, and we look forward to any other applications that we receive, and encourage you to share that.
Thank you, Kayla. Yeah, I did just put a link in the chat if anyone's curious about our open positions. More information is in there, and please do share those widely. So now Cecilia is going to give us some updates on volunteer and Friends of the Park, and then we'll have time at the end for additional questions and any announcements that you all want to share with the group.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. For those I have not met, Cecilia Borgman on the community building team with Park Pride. I work with Ellen and Tori to help our friends groups connect with the resources that make sense for where you are in your journey to reaching your goals. So obviously you heard from my team members from visioning and grants. Those are just two avenues to help you approach your goals within your park. Some of the other things that we can help you with is connecting you with volunteers. We can bring out the people power to do trail building, to do plantings. We have a lot of corporate groups that approach us and are always looking for parks. So for our folks that are looking to bring volunteers out to their green space, please let us know. We have lots of interest. Kind of in that same vein, we've got two different partnerships that I wanted to share out with this group that help to build your capacity for your volunteer groups. So we have a partnership with the Atlanta Community Tool Bank. If you are a registered friends group, you can set up your own account underneath Park Pride in this sort of a sub-count model, where you can have your own login and your own password to directly make tool orders. And for those who don't know, the tool bank doesn't only just have tools for your workday, but they also have event materials. So they've got tents, they've got podiums and chairs and tables. They've even got some games and chalk and different things sometimes for park activation. So they're a great resource to have. So that's one way that we can help your team and help your community come together in your park. Another way is through, like I was alluding to earlier, matching corporate groups or civic groups, potentially even religious groups to existing work days that are happening in your park. So we have a partnership with Hands On Atlanta that we're just now piloting. It's something new. We're trying it out, trying to, iron out all the kinks in it. But what it allows us to do is allows us to get your work days on the Hands On Atlanta portal and get all the thousands of volunteers that they are constantly engaging with to try and come out to your work days. So we're figuring out how to scale this up. We've got a pilot that we're starting out with, and we're looking for a few more groups to fill that cohort. We also have other opportunities. If you're not ready to kind of take on learning the Hands On Atlanta software, we have other ways that we can connect and support getting volunteers out to that park. So let us know if you guys have projects that could use some people power this fall, because we've got lots and lots of interest. And you can email me if you've got any questions about what volunteer services we provide and how I can kind of support figuring out which of our offerings make sense for your green space. Awesome. Let's see. Oh, I also wanted to talk with you guys about little libraries. So we have sort of a unique opportunity. Hands On Atlanta Week happens yearly. It's their kind of big week to support local nonprofits. And we've partnered with the Tool Bank and a few other partners, Poison Girls Club and a few other schools. And they're going to be creating little libraries that they would like to install in DeKalb or Atlanta parks. We have about 10 extra little libraries that need a home. And the way this kind of process would work is the youth are going to build them, they're going to paint them, and we're going to have kits at the Atlanta Community Tool Bank that friends groups can go and pick up. So actually we'll have some starter books for you. We'll have the painted little house along with the post. We'll also provide you with some tools to get that little library installed. So we'll bring shovels, we'll have some Quikrete. All of this will be a part of your little library package. And that's going to be happening in October. So if you would like a little library, maybe you would like to add another one to your park, or one needs to be repaired, or you never had one, we'd love to bring that little library out to your green space. So you can email me at Cecilia@Park Pride for any of the things I've detailed, ways to connect with us, and bring those things out. Okay, last but not least, we've got some different events. So you've heard from Andrew that we've got our park design workshop. That's going to be on the 28th. I did drop a link for that in the chat a little bit earlier. We've got a couple other programs I wanted to share with y'all. The first one is a green space gathering. So in addition to these virtual park meetings, we're also organizing occasional green space gatherings that are in person, are more networking, allow us to get outside, to get into a park, to visit places around our network. So we're going to be at Adair Park in October for our green space gathering. That's going to be October 13th from 6 to 7:30 at Adair Park. I'll drop the link in the chat in just a second. So putting that on our radar, that is for friends, groups, conservancies, and folks who care and want to learn about what's happening in the park system here in the metro area. So that is open to anyone who wants to come. The last event I will mention is we have a few all-call work days that we do throughout the year. Most of our volunteer program are sort of stewarding custom groups, but we have a few all-call every year. So we're going to be having one more before the end of 2022. That's going to be November 5th. We are still solidifying the date, still solidifying the location, but we're slated to be likely on the west side doing some work on November 11th. So lots on the volunteer front. Little libraries, hands-on Atlanta Community Tool Bank. These are all things that we can connect you with to help grow your capacity, to help bring more volunteers out, and to have more meaningful amenities in your park. Any questions for all of the all the many things I just shared with you all? Excellent. All right, let me just, Ellen, did you drop those in the chat? Were you able to? Oh,
I
perfect.
did. I did not repeat the park design workshop link.
No
Thank you,
worries.
Commissioner. So yeah, I just want to repeat, we have 2 open positions at Park Pride. One is the administrative assistant to the executive director. They would be working with Michael. The other is our program associate for grants and fiscal sponsorship, working with Kayla. Those are on our website. Please share. You heard from the commissioner. The Parks Department is also hiring eagerly, so please check those out at that link that the commissioner just shared and send those around. We definitely want some parks people working with us. So I'm going to first just make sure that no one else from the Park Pride team or the commissioner has anything to share with the group, and then we can open the floor for additional questions for the commissioner and announcement from attendees, any events, things happening in your parks or in your neighborhood that you think this group will be interested in, please feel free to share those. So Park Pride team, any last announcements before we open the floor?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, any questions for the commissioner? Anything that came up as you were listening to our other announcements? I'm singing the Jeopardy theme song in my head. All right, well, Commissioner very generously provided Emma Gowan's email address in the chat earlier. Brent, I see you have a topic. Go ahead. What is your topic?
How you doing? I'm Brent Ingram. I'm a resident of Atlanta. I'm in Marietta tonight, about 20 miles outside of Atlanta, playing pickleball because Atlanta has no pickleball courts. The commissioner already knows he's a great guy. I've already met him once. Just want to put out the rest of the Park Pride team and the rest of the people that are on the call. The city really needs pickleball courts. There's like 60 people here tonight. When I play in Atlanta, we play on tennis courts with chalk lines and temporary nets. And there's usually 30 to 40 of us, a minimum of 20. So just, I really want to make a call for pickleball courts. Definitely needed in Atlanta. That's all I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Brent, for joining us from the court.
And I don't know, Ellen, if we have the, oh, go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that the forgot to introduce myself in terms of who I represent here. I am with the Alliance for the Activation of Cook Park. I am the chairman of the board right now. And I just wanted to invite everybody over to the park on November 12th. We're having a Thrive Outside Day in partnership with Water West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. And on that day, we will also be hosting a tour. The Watershed Management is going to be providing a tour for us to invite the school children and the community to give a real workshop on the green infrastructure that the park was built upon. And so I just wanted to get that out there. It's November the 12th. We'll probably be out there from about maybe 12 to 2. Not quite sure about the time. I can let Ellen or Cecilia know about that and to get it out to the rest of you. But you're invited, and I hope we'll see some of you out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, let us know those details and we can add that to Park Pride's calendar. Other announcements or questions from the group? I see Elizabeth Hollis just joined us. Just letting you know, Elizabeth, that we're calling for attendee announcements and questions for the commissioner.
Princess, looks like you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry. I just want to make an announcement that Historic Fourth Ward Park Conservancy is sponsoring a kickball tournament at the skate park, Historic Fourth Ward Skate Park, on November the 12th. We're trying to raise a little money to put some more flowers that the pandemic had killed during that time. So everybody, please look us up. I'll put in the chat the email to register. We're challenging all teams in Atlanta to come on and to make the best kickball tournament. Thanks.
Awesome, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Things to share with this group, things happening in your park? Oh, Rosa, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, just circling back on the idea of bringing the community together. We are hosting our second Chastain Challenge. So I know we talked in the past about the one that we did last year for the 75th anniversary of the park. It's a virtual walk. It was 75 laps last year around the park, and it actually really built a lot of community to help people meet each other, people that use the park a lot, that are part of this community, even though they might not live in the neighborhood. And so we're launching it October 1st through November 30th. It's essentially a 5K a day. But I think it's an easy way to build community. If anybody else wants to try it, you just do it through Run Sign Up. It's not very expensive. It's about, I think, $500 to get the process going. And then the rest is, you know, your swag. So that's it. And it builds community. So wanted to mention that. And then we have our auto show on October 16th at the Chastain Horse Park, Red Lot parking. So if you are, if you love classic cars or new wheels or anything like that, it's a fun free event for the community. And finally, we have our Ray Mock Memorial Golf Tournament on September 30th, commemorating Coach Matt Adams, and would love to see you guys if you are golfers, 9 to 12 at the North Fulton Golf Course. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosa. Commissioner, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I just wanted to maybe ask a question of this group. Is in the chat, you know, while the next person's asking their questions, if you could just put, you know, if you were commissioner, what would be your highest, maybe 2 or 3 priorities? You know, I've heard climate change, I've heard stormwater mitigation, I've heard, you know, maintenance, I've heard pickleball, I've heard disc golf, but if you wouldn't mind just giving me your kind of 2 or 3 priorities, and I want to just acknowledge Catherine for seeding that idea of like community participation. So this is just a real quick, easy way for me to get some input on, you know, y'all are park professionals, park advocates, and it'd be helpful to understand from you, what are your first 2 or 3 priorities if you were commissioner? So thank you. And Catherine.
Great, thanks. Let's see, 2 questions. One, do you prefer to go by Justin or Commissioner Cutler? That's helpful to know, right? And then secondly, I just wanted to hear from you, what, you know, did you do in Seattle, or what was really, you know, something that really connected with the citizens that you want to bring to Atlanta? And is there anything in particular about Atlanta that you've thought, you know, we're doing a good job on? But I'm mostly interested about like anything in Seattle that you want to bring and implement in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, I prefer Justin. I will admit the formality of Southern culture has been a little tricky, right? People all call me Commissioner Cutler, and so it's. But yeah, feel free to call me Justin, Commissioner Cutler, Mr. Cutler, whatever you feel comfortable with, I am comfortable with too. And if you call me Jason, that's okay too, because a lot of people confuse me with Jason and Justin. So I get Jason a lot too. I won't take offense. Just don't call me late for dinner, and make sure, you know, that we get together. So yeah, I'm flexible on that. So thank you, Catherine, for asking that question. I will say, you know, when I think about the question of, you know, what do you hope to bring from Seattle? And it's a really tricky question. And I think it's tricky because every community is different. But the things that I'm most proud about that I implemented in the city of Seattle were really about values. And they were values around equity, customer service, and excellence. And I think it's really important that when we think about what can we do to move Atlanta forward, I think it really falls into one of those three buckets as well, right? How can we be excellent with our staff? How can we make sure that we have excellent maintenance? How can we make sure that we're training and developing our team to be the best they can be? So some of the things that we've had conversations around with our team has been, you know, do we have a youth program quality assurance assessment? There's the Weichert Institute up in Michigan that has a logic model that they use. But there's the Georgia statewide after school network that has a youth development tool that they put out as well. And how are we using that to make sure our programs are excellent and of highest quality for our young people? Thinking about equity, you know, one of the things that we did in Seattle was we looked at how are we assessing different fees? And is there a way to assess more affluent communities a higher fee, given that they have the ability to pay, and less affluent communities a lower fee, given that, you know, equity is about not equal, it's about doing what's right for the community that you're trying to serve. And so that's something that I think it's about using values to make decisions. I said equity, excellence, and then customer service. And so I think the other thing that's really important in Atlanta is providing a high level young emails the Department of Parks and Recreation that we're responsive, right? That Ms. Young doesn't have to reach out to the commissioner to get a response. And so I've sent an expectation document to my leadership team, you know, that we're responding to community questions within a certain period of time. And that if we aren't, we're at least responding and saying, hey, I got your email and we'll be getting back to you. Because I think that goes a long way to building trust with community and also building a culture of community service. So I think it's really about values that I bring, and how that shows up will maybe different in a community. So I know that that's maybe a different way to answer your question, but I think it's really about every community is unique. And I think it's really important that we take a community approach, working with neighbors to address the critical issues that we're facing. So there may be things that we do from Seattle. There may be things that we do from, you know, Chicago or Dallas or Miami or Europe, right? Or Australia or China, right? Or Bolivia. You know, I think there's a lot of great things happening around the world in parks and recreation that we sometimes just need to look up, look out. And it's really hard when you're in a pandemic and when you're coming out of pandemic to think differently, because you're in such a crisis mode. I just want to acknowledge that we've spent the last 3 years providing essential services, making sure people were fed, making sure at minimum our parks were mowed, and sometimes struggling at that, right? Making sure that we were able to provide a minimum level of service as people were passing away due to COVID-19, as we were losing employees because they didn't want to come to work because they were afraid of COVID, right? I mean, we've all been there. And so I think it's important that we take a moment, acknowledge that time that we were in and we are coming out of, and then take a deep breath together. And I think we still haven't gotten to that moment of that collective deep breath. But I think that's what I hope to bring, is just being able to say, look, we had a hard 3 years. Now we need to look up, look out, and look around. And I think that's really exciting. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Well, Commissioner, your question is getting a lot of good responses in the chat.
You'll email that to me, right? If you don't mind.
We will. Yeah, we'll pull those out and share them, because definitely want to make sure those are on the record. And please continue to answer that question if you would like in the chat. The commissioner asked, if you were commissioner, what would your top 2 or 3 priorities be for parks and recreation? Michael, go ahead. You got your hand up.
So let's see here. I just wanted to comment. I put something in the chat with the 3 areas that the commissioner talked about. And I think part of what I'm hearing from him, and I think I just wanted to elevate here, is part of what he was talking about bringing from his experience in Seattle and really shined through in the selection process, and I think is coming up here, is looking at a effort to focus on not just strategies and tactics, but also culture. And I think that we're looking at some opportunities right now as we're coming back from the pandemic to think about the culture within the Department of Parks and Recreation, the culture that we're building together with this ecosystem of nonprofits and friends groups and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to point that out and to at least name that and explain. I had said something that strategy eats culture, or culture eats strategy for lunch. And what I meant by that was that idea that if we're always just focusing on the 3 tactics, the things we're going to check our boxes off of, as opposed to changing how we get things done in the way that we approach the work we do, that it seems to me like we don't get as much done. But if we can actually change the culture to make it supportive of the kinds of things that we all want to see, I think we can do a lot more. So I appreciate your thoughts on this. And I also appreciate this to-do list that I see that's emerging here in the chat here. There's a lot of great ideas.
Definitely. Feel free to keep them coming. Does anyone else have questions or announcements for the group? I see a lot of responses coming in. Gonna give it a minute or two. And of course, like having a little found time, not a bad thing. So we can let you go a little bit early if there are no questions or comments for the benefit of the group. Please, like I said, keep answering that question in the chat. We're going to pull those out and share them with the commissioner, and also keep them on a record for Park Pride in our files so that we can refer back to that if we need to. Share them with the staff, the full staff. Just a reminder, a lot of the things that we mentioned tonight, a lot of our upcoming events are going to be on our online calendar. They're already there. So please keep an eye on that. Reach out to us if you have questions. You heard from different program staff. Their emails are in the chat and also on Park Pride's website, on our team list. So if you have questions about those particular programs, please feel free to reach out to those staff members. So final call for any announcements or questions. Awesome. Well, I'm going to release us for the evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Michael's hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, is your hand
No,
still
I'm sorry. I'm taking it down. Although I do want to just recognize Ellen. This is a group of herding cats here as far as keeping things going. So the idea that we've gotten to the end here with time to spare is testament to you and helping to manage our group here today. So thank you. And the other folks from Park Pride providing their reports and everything, as well as ample use of the chat so that we covered a lot in a short period of time. Appreciate you all today. And I found this to be a very positive experience. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thanks everybody. And I just want to echo what the commissioner said earlier, that Atlanta is so fortunate to have a community of people like you who care about parks and are willing to act on that, and often as volunteers. So we appreciate you a lot. We want to support you and hope to grow this community. Feel free to sign off. Have a great evening. Cecilia and I are going to hang out for a couple minutes. So if you want to ask us specific questions or just want to stay in the room for a little longer, we'll hang out, but feel free to jump off if you're finished. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.